All right, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the webinar for job search strategies for international students. I'm happy to introduce and also reintroduce for everybody who was here in the previous webinar, Josh. He is the Director of International Affairs at Westcliff University and also the founder and CEO of Ask a DSO. He will tell you guys a little bit more about what that is during the webinar. But Josh is going to lead this webinar. If you have any questions during his presentation, feel free to ask it in the chat. And we will try to answer those either during the webinar or at the end. We will also do a quick Q&A. So yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to Josh now, and let's have some fun.
Thank you, Gert. Thanks for having me yet again. I always appreciate it, and welcome everyone. I almost said good morning, but for all you East Coasters, it's the afternoon. You're living in the future here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my screen shared here. So as Gert mentioned, the topic of this presentation is it's job search strategies, but I also wanted to highlight that a lot of it is bridging cultures and breaking barriers, right? Because as international students, so much of the job search is it's everything that a US job seeker needs and more. And so I really want to touch on some of those extra challenges during our time together today. So we'll talk a little bit about U.S. workplace culture, and especially as that pertains to the onboarding and hiring process and what companies are looking for. We'll talk about how to explain OPT work authorization to employers who may or may not be familiar with it. We'll get into some job search strategies that everybody can use, and again, we'll touch on cultural barriers and how to overcome them. But first, um, if you don't know me, my name is Dr. Josh Schoonover. I've been working in international education for over 8 years. During that time, I've served over 10,000 international students. I've helped over 4,000 international students get student visas, over 1,600 get approved for H-1B, over 400 get approved for green card. And, specific to our topic here, I've helped over 3,000 get approved for OPT and STEM OPT. So, this isn't just a presentation put together by ChatGPT. This is the stuff that I've been spending the better part of the last decade doing and getting real results. And I'm going to bring all of those strategies and all the lessons that I've learned during that time here. So as we prepare for graduation, I'm assuming lots of students here are getting close to that date, and if so, congratulations. That's an awesome milestone. I don't care what level you're at. I have four kids myself, so when they graduate kindergarten, when they graduate elementary school, I just myself graduated from my doctorate program within the last month, so graduation is a big deal, and the undergrad is and the undergrad and the graduate level are both a big part of that. Um, but then we kind of go, okay, what's next? What's after that? Because in school things are very structured, and then after that is where things become less defined, and students are kind of left to find their own way a little bit more. And unfortunately, the numbers paint kind of a bleak picture here that only 20% of international students are able to successfully transition to full-time employment during the OPT phase, which is available to every international student. And getting you through the program and maintaining status while you're in the program, but then how much is done to prepare people for the next step after that? So that's the bad news. The good news is that there are strategies that work. Having confidence in yourself, in the skills that you bring to the workforce, in yourself as a developing professional. All of these things can help position you to be successful post graduation. So one of the major so I'm going to talk about four different mindset shifts here as we prepare for entering into the U.S. U.S. workforce. One of them is, first and foremost, preparing for the mindset that employers are going to expect you to have when you get into the company. If you haven't heard the word initiative, that is it, it's like one of those core values at every company that's so core that they don't even put it in their core values because it's just an expectation. So initiative means that you take action without being asked. So imagine you're working at a retail store and a customer walks in and you walk over to the customer and say, "Hey, how you doing? Are you looking for anything specific today? Is there something I can help you find?" That's taking initiative. Just that simple step is taking initiative. Whereas the other side of the coin is a customer walks in and you just keep standing over there until the manager walks over to you and says, "Hey, go greet that customer." That'd be an example of not taking initiative. So I use that as a very basic example to illustrate a larger point. Um, as a director of international affairs, somebody that manages people, one of my favorite things about my team is when somebody doesn't just bring me a problem, but they bring me a solution to the problem. Hey, we've noticed that we're getting this issue coming up. I think we should respond like this. You know, problem solvers are going to be a premium in any organization. I don't care about artificial intelligence. I don't care about automation, robots. If you can solve problems, there's going to be a place for you in the company, especially here in the US. And a lot of that does come down to, the ability to communicate clearly and professionally with your boss. There's a difference between, the example I just mentioned. Um, bringing the problem and the solution versus, being maybe a bit too direct. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later of, like coming with the attitude of, "Hey, why haven't we fixed this yet? Like, why don't we just do that? Like, that's a really easy problem. I can't believe we're not doing that." It's like, okay, like, let's just pump the brakes here a little bit. Like, the message is right, but the way that the message is being delivered isn't the best. And so, like all of these communication strategies that you've been learning in school and asking your professor for an extension and as much as a lot of us don't like those group projects as we go through university, they really do teach us how to navigate shared responsibilities, so that those are key skills to bring in. um, Time management, this is something where culturally in the US, punctuality matters, deadlines matter. The US tends to be on the more strict side in terms of time. I'll use an example. My first job in international education, I worked for a company that brought tour groups over. And so they would take English classes in the morning, and then in the afternoons, they would go to they go shopping, they go to like some like outings, and then during the weekends we do like the big outings like Universal Studios and Disneyland and stuff like that. I'm based in Southern California, as you can tell. um and so we had to have these talks with these groups about, okay, we're leaving Six Flags at 5:30. Everybody needs to be back at the bus at 5:30. And certain groups, we had people from all over the world, Asia, South America, Europe, you name it, we had people there, groups from those countries. And so some groups would be there at 5:20, and then at 5:31, they're tapping their watch. "Hey, why haven't we left yet? It's 5:31. You said that we were going to leave at 5:30. It's 5:31." And then we had some other groups, they were a bit more flexible on time to the point where one time we had waited for 10, 15 minutes for a particular group of students. We sent their group leader out to go find them. 10, 15 minutes more goes by. And so one of our staff goes to look, and they found the group leader had found his students at a cafe and sat down and ordered himself a sandwich. Knowing that we were already late, we were already past time, he decided to order food. And so, like, the point I'm making here is different cultures view time very differently. But in the US, showing up on time and not just not just walking into the office at 9 o'clock, but being at your desk. If you wanted to use like employers generally don't like when somebody walks in at 9, sets their stuff down, and then goes to the bathroom and then gets a cup of coffee, and then they don't sit down and start working until 9:20. So the idea is that 9 o'clock is when you start working. If you need time to settle in at the office before then, you know, it's a good idea to get there early if you're going to need that time. If you can sit down and start working right away, cool. Show up at 8:59, be at your desk at 9 o'clock working. But if you need to use the restroom, get coffee, all of those different things, um, that's generally not considered working. Like obviously you can take your breaks, but like when the when the clock says to start, your employer expects you to start working. And then like this last bullet point about independence and self-reliance, this isn't eventuality, right? This isn't something where they necessarily expect you to do that on day one. Like your first week is your time to ask questions, is your time to be learning, is your time to double check on things. But at a certain point when you're in the company, they expect you to be able to operate on your own and not have to continue to come back. Like novel questions are okay. And what I mean by that is a new situation comes up, something you haven't encountered yet. Like, yeah, by all means. Hey, excuse me, boss, this situation came up. I haven't experienced this yet. How would you like me to handle it? But one thing that discourages employers is when you have to come back and ask the same question 4, 5, 10 times. And I understand that lots of employees want to make sure that they're doing things right. And it's okay to do it a couple times, but at a certain point, you do need to become self-sufficient. That's the expectation. And so this kind of plays into what can be kind of thought about in terms as almost culture shock in turning, when entering into the workforce. Like, yeah, you've been in the US for 2 years or 4 years, but the office environment is a different beast. It's a different animal entirely. And so, again, coming from university, and this is one of the ways where universities don't always necessarily prepare students for employment. Schools are very good at giving very specific instructions. Um, and part of that goes back to the way that the US education system was built was actually to prepare people to work in factories where they take directions from their managers. But the modern workforce has shifted, and we expect problem solvers now. Um, and then there's the walking the fine line of not speaking up versus being too direct in the example that I just gave, right? So, if you see a problem, if you see an issue, your company wants you to bring it to their attention, but they want you to do that with tact. And what that means is basically doing it in a respectful way, a professional way, not a way where you're coming off as complaining, but rather that you're a member of the team, that you're partnering with the company about, hey, this is the company's mission. This is the way we're serving our customers. And so I want to be, from my role in the team, I want to help make sure that we're doing that as good as possible. And if you do that, that's going to go a long way towards making you a indispensable member of the team. So before we get there, obviously we have to get through the interview process. And this is one of the things that I coach international students on a lot is how to clearly explain your work authorization. Lots of companies will shy away if you discuss needing sponsorship in the interview process. Because at that point, from the company's perspective, you haven't given me anything and now you're asking for something from me right from the jump. And I know that's not how it is, but that can be the perception from the employer's perspective. So instead, again, as an international student, you have work authorization available to you through OPT. So you don't have to say, yes, I need sponsor. You can say, no, actually, I have work authorization in the US. And it's, if they ask for how long, oh, well, like I'm on my OPT, I have a year of work authorization, and then I can extend it after that. And the example on the screen is 3 years of work authorization, assuming that you have the STEM extension available to you based on your program of study. But even if you don't, you could always enroll in another program. And there are schools that offer Schools will never use the phrase day one CPT, but they offer day one CPT. They'll say, well, we offer work authorization from the beginning of our program, or something like that. But sorry, lost my train of thought. Okay, I'm back. So what you can say is, yeah, I have work authorization, but I can, yeah, it's for a year right now, but I can always extend it. And then that puts the company at ease about, oh, okay, you know, they're able to legally work right now. And then, that's not to say that you don't that you can't later on bring up the question about sponsorship. But I don't recommend doing it like right at the beginning. If the employer brings it up, you can say it's definitely something that I'd be willing to explore. If I find a good company, I'd love to stay and continue to grow and develop with the company. But don't bring it up during the interview process. And part of that is because there are a lot of common employer misconceptions, especially when it comes to international students. Unfortunately, some employers don't think their understanding is that they're not able to hire international students when obviously you can, or they can, but there's misconceptions. Sometimes the company operates from a point of almost fear about, well, we don't want to do anything illegal. We don't want to get in trouble. And so, unfortunately, in this regard, it is going to be your responsibility to have these conversations with the employers and explain it in a way where they're able to understand. And if your university has verbiage or pamphlets, sometimes career services departments have like pamphlets explaining OPT that you can provide to employers. Again, like I mentioned at the very beginning, confidence is really important. I want everyone, if you don't bring anything out of this, bring anything else out of this, I want you to leave with the confidence that you are legally allowed to work in the US and you can be confident in that when you're having these discussions in the interview phase. It Some of it goes back to like if you've ever done sales training, and a lot of sales is the transference of confidence, like when we believe that the person selling us a product is that confident that the product's going to work, we can become more confident that that product is going to work. And you want to be able to do the same thing in the interview process. You need to have that confidence that, yeah, no, the work authorization is taken care of. Like I got that. It's good. It's federal. It's 100% legal. And then, you can help make the employer feel more comfortable, during that discussion. So you're transferring that confidence to them. So I'm kind of going in reverse order here. Hopefully it's making sense. So, in order to get the interview, obviously you need to do you need to do the job search and not just in a shoot in the dark kind of way. Sorry, that's an American expression. Not just throwing out pebbles and hoping that one of them land. There's proven job strategies that you can implement. The most important one you probably heard is networking. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in the future slide. But there's also informational interviews where you can go and actually learn from industry insiders. And so pairing that academic knowledge that you have with industry knowledge, that's going to put you ahead. During interviews, companies really like to see that people aren't just coming to them with a degree, but they already understand the field, they understand the challenges, they understand the current trends, they understand the issues that the clients and customers are facing. So these informational interviews are a great way to kind of build that knowledge. And then, again, like don't just apply to anywhere and everywhere, but rather take a targeted application approach, where you're applying to companies that, first of all, that you would want to work for. I never understand, sometimes people are like, well, I got three job interviews, but I don't want to work there, so I didn't take any of them. It's like, okay, then why did you waste your time? Like, forget about the company's time. You wasted your time by filling out an application for something that you never intended to follow through on. Um, and then, like some people feel pressure to hit some arbitrary mark. Like, I'm going to apply to 10 jobs a day or 30 jobs a day or 50 jobs a day. And then they realize they run out of jobs that fit what they actually want to do. So they just start again doing the spray fire method, whereas they could have taken more time and presented a better application to the companies that they're actually interested in. And this is where the 80/20 rule kind of comes in. If you're not aware of it, the 80/20 rule gets applied to lots of different things. But in this, the topic that we're discussing today, 80% of your outcomes are going to come from 20% of your effort. And yeah, there's other things that need to get done, but like doing the research, making connections, following through, following up, updating your cover letter to the company's job posting, updating your resume. All of these things are going to go and they're going to have a disproportionate outcome. Some people are like, well, if I do that every single time, then I'm going to get less applications out. And that's okay because you don't need 50 job offers. You need one. So take the time and tailor your like the output that you're putting for companies and maximize the chances that the ones you're putting out you'll actually get a response on. And as you're doing this, be aware that what you may have learned about resumes and cover letters might be different than what we do here in the US. So in some cultures, it's very common to include, headshots, photos, TOEFL scores, like if you're working for an international company, if you're working for a company that does business in the US, but it's based in your home country. Like, yeah, I understand where you would want to put your TOEFL score because you want to show the, abroad that, yeah, I can speak English. Here's my proficiency. But here in the US, it's assumed that you're able to speak English. I know English isn't our official language, but that it's kind of just the realities of the current marketplace. So don't include scores, don't include photos, unless some some employers, some professions, you still need it. Like if you're working in like obviously like if you're working in like modeling or like trying to get into film or theater or stuff like that, that's a different topic. But to work like in an office setting in a professional environment, most companies, they see a picture and that actually makes your application look less professional. I don't say that to be harsh, but like that's the perception. So I want to make sure that's clear. Another thing is on your resume, you want to emphasize achievements and be data oriented as much as you can. Don't just list your job responsibilities. I managed. I'm going to continue to use retail because it's a basic example. Um, I was a shift lead at Sephora. I don't know why I just said a makeup company. I worked the cashier and interacted with customers face to face. I restocked shelves as needed. Like, okay, you're just giving me job responsibilities. There's nothing exciting about that. Nothing where I'm able to visualize you in my company. But instead, you want to talk about, like I was salesperson of the week on three different occasions. I processed 40 people per hour in one-to-one direct sales. Like, the more you can quantify things, what this does is it doesn't just make your application look better. It also is showing the company that, and the hiring manager that you can get results. And it's showing, a skill set that we can then, view you in our company. And, to this extent, when you emphasize skills over job responsibilities, um, you really stand out. The example that I'll use is again, I'm based in Southern California. Um, and our recruiter at our company knows if I'm hiring for a position and she sees somebody with Disneyland on their resume, I want to interview that person because even though I work at a university and Disneyland's not a university, think about all the different transferable skills, right? It's just absolutely probably the most culturally diverse work environment you could possibly work in. So in international affairs, you're working with a diverse client base. I love that. We know that Disneyland, Disney as a whole is renowned for their customer service, for creating magical experiences. And that's what I want my advisors to do with international students. So you can kind of see here, you can kind of like not just, I manned the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland, but rather, I navigated a multicultural client base in a high-paced, sometimes pressure-filled environment, which is absolutely true. And that was one person on my team. Honestly, she was an Indiana Jones operator, and she was absolutely great. She was able to stay calm, and she's like Indiana Jones broke down 4 times a day. I was used to dealing with frustrated people that were having trouble and communicating with me because of a language barrier. She's like, this is nothing. This is easy for me. So, like you get the example here. This is kind of what you can use your resume and also your cover letter to show your personality and what you're going to bring into the position and into the company. So I've kind of talked about some of these things a little bit, some job mistakes that we want to stay away from. So it's called the spray and pray method, where you just throw out as much as you can and just pray that one of them lands. So I've already talked about that. I don't need to go into that more. The generic applications, what I was just talking about with using the same resume, the same cover letter, and only changing the job title and the company name. Um, Real easy tip, guys. We live in 2025. ChatGPT is for free. Develop your cover letter template with all of your experience, okay? Because ChatGPT needs to know you. Like, don't just tell it make me a cover letter. Still put in your personality. Like, write a draft. Write a draft with your experience, your personality, your accomplishments. Draft it out. Put it in the chat GPT, say, hey, this is my first draft of a cover letter. Can you improve it? Can you fix the grammar? Can you make it more engaging? Like chat GPT is an amazing tool. It's not going to solve all your problems. You need to tell it what to do. So put in your draft and say, if you're not confident in your skills as a writer, I almost always say, clean this up for me, just so it knows to, check for any spelling and grammar. But then I'll also say, make this something where a recruiter would make this engaging for a recruiter. Make this something where, a hiring committee would be interested in having an interview with me. Tell it what you want it to do. And then, now you have your updated, refined cover letter. Save that as a template, a Word doc, a Google Doc, whatever you use. And then anytime you want to apply to a job, take that template, put in the chat GPT. This is what I do. This is what I would do. I'm not actively applying for jobs right now, but this is what I would do. Um, I would say, I'm going to give you a job description, and then I'm going to give you a cover letter. I want you to update my cover letter to meet the job description. Then it'll say, okay, I'm ready for the job description. Literally copy paste the job description from the internet and paste in the chat GPT. Then it will say, okay, now I understand the job description. Give me your cover letter. You put in that template that you drafted, ChatGPT refined, and now, ChatGPT will take that updated, refined cover letter and tailor it to the position that you're applying for. And this is big, guys, because like I hire people. I'm a hiring manager. When I see a generic cover letter, I know that person put no effort into the job application. And like I get it, okay? Like I really do. I at one point early in my life, I was unemployed for 9 months. Like I get how frustrating it can be and how it can be discouraging to apply and not get jobs. And then still feel like, well, why do I have to tailor every single one when I'm not getting ones anyways? Here's what I've learned from being on the other side of the table. When somebody applies for the company, yes, I want to see if they're going to be a good fit. I also want to see if they actually want to work here. And if it's a generic cover letter, then I know that that person's applying to a million other companies, and that's fine. But I know that they put minimal effort into applying for my company. And then I don't know, okay, well, if I go, like, does this person even want to work here? Did they even look at the company? Are they just applying because it's an open position? And then if I go through the process of interviewing the person, are they going to bail out mid-interview process because they found something else? Am I going to offer them a job and they start and a week later they're going to leave? So, like, employers have this insecurity too. And by taking a little bit of time to tailor your cover letter and your resume, you can do the same method with the resume that I just talked about. Use ChatGPT to refine it and then put in the job description and the resume and ask it to tailor different points of your resume to meet the points of the job description. You can do the same thing. When you do that, that shows the company that you're invested in the application. And now they naturally are going to want to be more invested in you too. And obviously there's some companies, the Googles and Apples of the world, that get more job applications than they know what to do with. Uh, but lots of companies, you'd be surprised lots how many companies want to find someone that they feel like actually wants to work there. And so doing all of this goes a long way. Um, and then the last point, we talked about networking a little bit already. It's almost foolish. And again, I don't say this to be harsh, but just like the reality of this situation is if you have a network, it'd be silly not to use it. Like if you have people that are working in the industry that you want to work in or working in the company that you want to work at. You know, I just talked a lot about how companies, like, are unsure about job applicants. So like if somebody on the team that's doing a good job says, "Hey, by the way, so and so just applied. I know them. I think they'd be a good fit." That word of mouth carries a lot of weight with the hiring manager and with the HR department. So, leverage those networks. It's not going to work all the time, but it's your warmest lead. So you might as well check it. And then the final point, and then like I am gonna leave time for Q&A, I promise. You know, when it comes to overcoming cultural barriers, like I said, already, confidence matters. You want to be able to confidently present yourself as a job applicant that's ready and willing to go and do a good job at the company. Um, there's been some weird's the only word I know to use to describe it. Some weird instances where, like working at a school, like we'll get calls from the companies and they'll say, your student came in and they expected to get the job and they were almost like aggressive with it, right? Like, when do you want me to start? What do you mean you need time to think about it? Like, just tell me right now, do you want to hire me or not? So like, yes, be confident, but don't be arrogant and certainly don't be entitled, right? Like it's like entering into a romantic relationship. There's courting on both sides. And so part of the way that you do that is you tell your story in a clear and but also a way that has like a little bit of passion, has a little bit of excitement. Um, if you don't know what an elevator pitch is, an elevator pitch, just like a quick background, imagine you were, like going to a job interview and you walk up to the elevator on the ground floor and you just so happen to take the elevator up with the director of the department. What are you going to say in those 60 to 90 seconds that you're in an elevator with them to get them excited about hiring you? So everybody should have an elevator pitch, and that's what you do at the beginning of an interview when they say, "Tell us a little bit about yourself." Sometimes people they misunderstand the question, and this is a cultural thing too. Oh, tell me a little bit about yourself. Oh, my name is this. I'm this age. I'm from this company. I like to play basketball and I have two dogs at home. It's like, okay, that's fine. But you didn't tell me about, your path to the company, what your interests are related to this field. It's a great opportunity, like the tell me about yourself is your first opportunity to explain to the employer why you're a good fit. So, make sure that you're making good use of that time. And then if and when you do get rejected, because that's part of the game, unfortunately, don't view it as a rejection, but rather just see it as a redirection. And what I mean by that is when I graduated from my master's in education program, I thought that I was going to work as a guidance counselor at a middle school or high school. And then I wasn't getting those job opportunities. And so, I had to go and say, okay, if it's not working out here, where can I reframe? What other opportunities can I explore? And that's how I found my way into higher education. And then by extension, after 4 years in higher education, I found my way into international education. So I know the process is frustrating. Um, I guarantee you, almost every single rejection is not personal. Sometimes companies are looking for something different. Sometimes, they have too many applications and they can only, they might only have a certain amount of interview slots. Uh, I've had multiple times in my career as a hiring manager where I've come down to two or three candidates and I'm like, they are all fantastic. I wish I could hire all three of them, but I have to choose one. So, um, like I said, I've been on it on the other side and I know how painful it could be. But every application is an opportunity. Every interview is an opportunity, if nothing else, to practice, to get more experience. And then to reflect afterwards, do a debrief. How did that interview go? What questions did I answer well? What could I do better next time? Yeah, I played college football growing up, and after every game we would watch film. And the good, the bad, and the ugly. We go over all of it. I did this play well because I did X, Y, and Z. I messed up this play really badly because I did A, B, and C. So, have the courage to go and do that after an interview so that every time you're getting better for the next time. And so, again, a lot of it does come back to mindset. I've talked about all of these things already. We don't need to belabor these points anymore. But I want to also reassure you, we've talked a lot about where things can go wrong, but obviously that's to give you the path of where things could go right. And again, this is something that I've helped over 3,000 international students navigate. And, I kind of have a story here about somebody else named Josh, not me, Josh, different Josh, and how I'm able to help students navigate this. Um, because, we went over a lot of information today, and I've already talked to Gert. He's going, this has been recorded. He is going to put it online, so you can, watch it again if you need to, if you want to take notes, if you want to go back and look at something. But if you wanted to have a step-by-step plan, not just, not just an overview, but okay, what do I do first, and then what do I do, and then what do I do, and what timeline do I do it by, and what scripts do I use to reach out to people? How much would that really help in the process, and take away a lot of the guesswork. And so that's where I've developed something that I'm calling the OPT Bootcamp. Um, I talked a lot today about job interview strategies and getting employment. For the sake of time, I didn't necessarily have time to get into how to apply for OPT. But in the OPT Bootcamp, I have a 22-minute video where I go step by step through the OPT application, like actually with screenshots of the online OPT application, and tell you exactly how to fill out every different section. I have a timeline about when the application needs to get submitted by, a checklist to make sure that all of those important documents are included in there, and then information stuff about what we talked about today, a job search toolkit, recruiter cheat sheet where you can send a recruiter information about yourself and hit the highlights about why you'd be a great candidate for them to consider for different positions. Um, and then as a bonus, I've included a list of 100 OPT friendly employers, and many of whom still also sponsor for H-1B. And I broke it down by industry so that you don't have to guess about, well, can I work in, this is my field, is this a company? I have all of that broken down for you. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I have the QR code in there right now. It's flexible in the sense that you're able to learn at your own pace. You're able to actually like have these documents with you while you're applying, while you're updating your LinkedIn account, doing all of these things. And then, because Gert and I go, a long way, and because he advocates for you guys really well. Like believe me, you guys see what he's putting on social media, like he's even doing even more behind the scenes. So, um, the OPT boot camp is typically $97, but Gert talked me into doing a 70% discount. So you scan that QR code, you go, you add it to cart. When you check out, there'll be a coupon code box. Put in code NB29 and you get the boot camp for 29 bucks instead of 97. So you can thank Gert for that. Um, Thank you everyone for for taking the time today to sit through the presentation. I have a other couple other ways you can stay connected if you want to learn more from me. I post about international student related matters on LinkedIn. I have a free weekly newsletter. And then for people who like really want intensive one-on-one work, I do have an international student community where you have direct access. I have weekly calls like this. So I'll put those links in the chat, but obviously I wanted to open things up for Q&A also. So if you'll bear with me for 5 seconds, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can put the links in where you can follow me. But I can and then I'll pull this back up. But I can start taking questions right now. Um, I don't know if there's anything in the chat, Gert, that you see that you can kind of toss at me, or if anybody is brave enough to unmute themselves and ask a question.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Josh, I think this was super informative. Even some strategies that I haven't heard of, you mentioned. So I think it's great. Yeah, there are so far like 4 questions in the chat. Um, do you want me to read them, or do you want to
No,
try?
you properly filibustered for me. Thank you, Gert. I'm able to get back now. So okay. So let me pull up the chat. Do you recommend putting cumulative grade point average and graduate year in the resume? So there's some conflicting like there's different schools of thought about this. The GPA isn't necessarily going to it's not going to be looked at negatively. It's not like including a picture where it could make your resume look less professional. I mean, go ahead and include that GPA if it's something that you're proud of. If it's something where, maybe it's you don't think that it'd be a benefit to you, it's okay to leave it off. That one, only use it for your benefit if you think so. So that's a good question there. Your graduation year, you can include it. US companies are not allowed to ask you how old you are. So, like if you ever get that in an interview, and you don't have to volunteer that information. You can if you want, you don't have to. I'm not necessarily sure of a case where it benefit you to share your age in an interview, but um, you know, it doesn't hurt necessarily hurt you or harm you to include your graduation year in there, but definitely include the school name, and definitely include the program. And if you're not gonna, one of the things that's nice about including the graduation year is it shows that the program's completed. So if you're not going to use a graduation year, I would do something else to make sure that you put in there that this is a completed degree. Brandon asked, what search prompts or techniques do you suggest to apply the 80/20 rule in our job searches, especially considering restrictions like e-verification? That's a great question. So a big part of it is going to be tailoring your application, like I talked about in this presentation. Also, probably. Now, when Northbridge it goes online, it's going to be a game changer because it's going to tailor job postings for specifically for international students. I would also highly recommend Indeed because Indeed's able to um, learn your skills, and for the most part, they do a pretty good job of tailoring uh, job postings to your specific to your specific skill set and telling you when you have jobs that qualifications that line up with it. And then lots of employers post on that. Um, and then also LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your digital resume. Um, and some people like just do the bare minimum on LinkedIn. I would highly recommend that you do invest some time because a lot of companies will, when they get the resume, they'll look up your LinkedIn and see if they can get any information from it there. Now, if you see my LinkedIn, you see that I'm very active on there. Gert's obviously very active, and we're both advocating for international students on there a lot. You don't have to be super, super active. I think people have like a misunderstanding about just what exactly they need to do. Um, the top 1% of LinkedIn content creators post once per week. So if you post on LinkedIn one time per week, you're in the top 1%. If you post one time per day, you're in the top 1% of the top 1%. So it doesn't have to rule your life. Even just a couple posts a week, it shows that you're very active on there. So I would definitely recommend, doing that. And also, LinkedIn has some pretty good, job search functionalities on there also. Mason asked about if I would recommend explain how OPT works in the cover letter. I wouldn't. I would just, keep your cover letter to your fit for the job. Um, because to an extent, companies are going to assume that you have work authorization in the US. Now, they might ask you, to confirm during the interview process. Um, So I wouldn't necessarily do it in the cover letter. Your cover letter is your time to explore to explore who you are and how you're a good fit. If you would want to include something like say you have it sounds terrible to say it, but I'm gonna be real with you guys because I want you to land jobs. If you have a name that's particularly ethnic, where somebody might have a concern about, you think that somebody's implicit bias might come in and they might have a concern about it, or if you have lots of degrees from a country outside of the U.S. or your work experiences, so a lot of your resume is foreign based, you can include a line at the bottom of your resume just like a little asterisk and say, cleared with authorization to work in the US. Just something like that. You could put one line in your resume. I wouldn't, the cover letter space is so valuable. I would focus on how you relate to the position in that space. That's a very good question, though. Um, Let me see here. Okay, so Gert and I actually were just having this conversation the other day. The question, do you need sponsorship now in the future? Um, where I hesitate with this is I don't want you to start for a company and then bring up H-1B and then have them use that and say, well, you told us that you don't need sponsorship, and use that against you. But on the other hand, you don't need it. You have work authorization through OPT. You could extend it through CPT. You don't necessarily need it. So again, that goes back to um, weighing the pros and cons of, is the H-1B something that I really want to do and I want to be a bit more aggressive and assertive towards it, then go ahead and check that box, yes. And maybe it prevents you from getting a couple interviews, but maybe it gets you with the right company that's willing to sponsor you later. Um, but rest assured, you can answer the question no. You can ethically answer the question no, because you don't need it in the sense that you have work authorization through OPT. What steps do students have to take who do not have a STEM course and don't have job experience? So again, even if you don't have STEM, you still have 12 months of work authorization through OPT. You can still extend it through enrolling in a school that offers day one CPT afterwards. So the more challenging part is going to be, if you don't have job experience. Hopefully, you have some sort of experience, doing internships or involvement in student clubs, student government, something that you can put on your resume, to show, that you've handled responsibility, and that you'd be, and again, emphasizing those transferable skills that would be beneficial in the workforce. And for students that do need extra help in this regard, I do have an add-on feature for the OPT bootcamp where I can work with you one-on-one. I haven't updated it on my website yet. So if you're interested in that, just go ahead and send me an email. I just put it in the chat there. And I can work with you one on one and actually like build your resume with you and tailor your LinkedIn website with you. So if that's something you're interested in, I could do that with you. And I know we're getting to the top of the hour. I know people have other responsibilities, other obligations at 10. So if you have to hop off, I see some people respectfully hopping off in the chat. No worries. I appreciate you coming and giving me an hour of your time. Um, I can stay on for a little while longer. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anybody have anything else you could put in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask away? All right. Well, if anything does come up, now you know how to contact me. You know how to, follow me on LinkedIn. You have my email address. So feel free to let me know if anything comes up. Again, thank you for your time and thank you to Gert and thank you for Northbridge for really delivering a really, really essential need for an underserved market. So I'm really excited for what you got going here, Gert. This is a really good thing that you're doing that's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you, Josh, and thanks everyone who attended. We're gonna post the webinar tomorrow on YouTube if you want to rewatch it. So make sure you keep an eye out on our social media channels. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to me or to Josh, and we will try to answer it either on text or maybe in the next webinar. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.